Hello everybody, welcome back. So, we're going to do a little bit of a different video this time as we got a little bit off because of my work schedule. Didn't do this super proactively, so we're going to be looking at my predictions for the rest of the week, and then looking at the matches today, / doing a little standings check-in for the Summer Showdown. So, Week 3, we're already getting to the very important time, especially for the West. The East has a couple more games to play, but for the West, we're really starting to see things solidify. We had some very interesting matches. So as you see, was not able to get these predictions locked in. I would have probably gone Spark in Dynasty, so it would have been one and one on those. But for the first day for today, as you see, I just flipped the score of these two. I can't get a good read on either of these teams for this meta. They look really good and really bad. Just all around. So we lost, got 0 on the double points, which is a bit of a feels bad for sure. But we did get the exact score line right for the last two. A Shock 3-0 New York, and then Vancouver. Great match. Just finished watching that one. Great back and forth match with Vancouver taking down that win, getting their 3rd win for the Summer Showdown already. So some pretty cool stuff there. So I'm going to go through my predictions quickly. I don't want to spend too much time on them this video. But see what we're going with for the next couple of days, and then to kind of take a look at where we're at for the Summer Showdown. What teams are doing really well, which ones are doing poorly. So first of all, for the East, I've got Seoul taking a pretty easy win against the Charge. They look really impressive against Valiant. They look really solid in this meta. We know how good Seoul is. Hopefully looking for some redemption in the playoff run this time. Although, of course, they won't get another crack at the West for another month plus. But I think they're still, extremely, extremely good. We'll see, if it's them or the Dragons who are really, kind of favored in this meta overall. But yeah, I got them taking down the Charge and probably not that competitive of a match. Even though the Charge, they've shown some improvements. After that, I've got the Spark taking down Valiant in a close one. I said 3-2. The Spark, we've seen a little bit of fall off. Chengdu's looking really solid. I think they're definitely on the come up as a team right now. But dropping that match to the Hunters this morning, in a little bit of a slide here. But I still like their talent a little more than the Valiant. I think that they are a bit more suited for control maps and push maps, which is usually it's just always what it's going to come down to. It's always going to be a push or a control map for a map 5. So I think that it's going to be, a bit of back and forth. Valiant honestly looks solid. I won't hold too much against them, for the 0-3 against Seoul. It's kind of like New York today. They didn't look bad. They had some bad moments, but overall they look pretty good. It's just the Shocker, they're just too good right now. So, while the Valiant keep this one close, I just still think that the Spark are a bit above them, but I think the gap is kind of closing. Diaz looked really, really mechanically solid on the Junker Queen. So it's been interesting to see some of the swap ups in that roster right now, as Diaz usually a DPS player. But Vancouver has Mirror, a DPS player on Junker Queen right now, and it's obviously working out well for them. So definitely something you can do. But again, got the Spark in a close one there. Then I got Shanghai taking down Philly 3-1. Again, Philly remains a bit of an enigma to me, but I'm just going to keep picking Shanghai right now because I like their team a lot, for a good reason. And then I got Philly taking down the Charge. I gave the Charge a map in that one. They've improved some. Philly has a tendency to, they have some rough maps here and there, but I still think that the Fusion are a better team overall, and they're going to take down Charge without too much trouble. And then for our double points, hopefully we can hit on this one because we whiffed on our double point for West Region. I took Shanghai in 5. Hunters look really solid in this meta. I think they're very dangerous. Whenever you can get them on those Genji comps, man, it's impressive. Jinmu and Leave is a very scary duo, and they've really impressed on the Junker Queen as well. getting a pretty good understanding of this meta. But in the end, I do still think Shanghai's a bit better. And until I see the Hunters, really punch up and take down either the Dynasty or the Dragons, I'm just not quite confident enough to pick them in this matchup. And for the West, I got Toronto taking down Boston 3-1. This is a Defiant team that's looking really good. They're in great shape to make their own homestead, which is always great. You want to see when we have these home tournaments, you want to see that team, they don't have to win it, but you want to see the home team at least get into that tournament. So, obviously we still have a little ways to go, but they're at least going to get their name in the hat. And Boston, they've been a bit up and down, impressive win against Atlanta. Then they got smoked by London, who London then lost to Atlanta. So, so it's like, well, what's going on here with, these middle pack teams are quite hard to predict sometimes because you never know what you're going to see. Are you going to see a really strong Boston? You're going to see a weak one. This one makes it not that difficult for me because I truly think Toronto's, they're a top 4. I think you could say it might be like 3-ish right now in the region. They're up there. So I think that they get it done 3-1 against Boston. The Los Angeles Sadiators, on the struggle bus. We'll talk about them in just a moment. But I do still think that they beat Paris, who is the worst team in the league right now, in my opinion. I think they take them down 3-0. Then I got Houston taking down Vancouver 3-2. Again, Vancouver, they look good. This is the best they've looked all season, obviously, being winless and having 3 victories. But I still think Houston is a little bit better. Yeah, there's some roster uncertainty, but it's still a stacked roster, and I got them taking a win in a really back-and-forth series. Then Justice versus Spitfire. So usually I don't amend these much. I'm going to change this one just a little bit. We're going to give London a map. But Washington, condensing this roster to 5, a lot of us said, like, oh, this might be the end. They're kind of blowing it up, and when I looked at it in the video, I was like, yeah, they're going to be in some trouble because for me, it was losing Mag was the most impactful one. But Kalios has stepped in and played well so far. Their support line they're pretty solid, Krillin and Opener. I do think they got outplayed a little bit in the match today against Vancouver, and that was the difference. But Assassin has looked incredibly good on the Genji, and we know how nuts Decay is. So this is a team that always has a shot. They lost a very, very close match to Vancouver, who's looked, like I said, very solid. So I'm not going to hold that too, much against them. They crushed Florida earlier. They're still looking a lot better. And London, they're just too inconsistent for me right now. I don't trust them, and weird is it to say, I trust Justice more at this point. Then you got Houston versus Atlanta. This is another one that I should probably change. I actually am. We're going to do a little flippy flop. I'm going to say Atlanta in 5. They struggled out of the gate, but they have started to really pick it up. Kai on Sojourn is just really, really, really effective. And we had Speedily make his debut today, which I think is huge. Nero was struggling a pretty good amount in this meta on the Genji. He even tweeted about it, a couple weeks in, like, man, I can't get a read on this meta. And that happens. It doesn't mean that Nero's a bad player. Obviously he's really good. There's just certain metas and certain styles just aren't great for certain players. Dallas is a team where they had success so far, in this meta. They've had success with Sparkle and Doha, and they're very different Genjis. Sparkle is very much a feast or famine Genji, where he will carry you for several maps. And then there's just a map or a matchup where he'll essentially hard throw because he's so aggressive, and it doesn't work. It's very much risk and reward. Does it work more often than not? Yes. And then you have Doha, who's a much more defensive, safer Genji, you could say. And they've looked good with both of them, obviously using Sparkle more, and I think they'll continue to use Sparkle more. But, there's a little bit more of a, stylistic difference in terms of those two, even though they're both great Genji players in their own right. All of that is to say that it just didn't seem like it matched up well for Nero. But they brought in Speedily, very, very highly touted prospect. He's been ripping it up in contenders for a long time. Finally 18 years old, and he looked really good in his debut. look like he can definitely hang, with a lot of the better Genjis in the league. So I think that's going to make Atlanta a lot scarier going forward. Hawk looks solid on the Junker Queen, and we know they have a good backline. OG particularly had a really nice match today on the Lucio. So I'm going to take Atlanta in a very close one against the Outlaws. And then I got Dallas over Florida. This would probably be 3-0. You know what? We've changed all the other ones this day. Let's go 3-0. Dallas looks really good. I wish we could get a Dallas versus Shock match soon because I want to know, who's top dog right now in the West because those two are definitely 1-2. So those are the predictions. I probably spent a little more time on them than I would have liked to, but those are the predictions for the week. And now we will jump over to the standings. So, Summer Showdown qualifiers with the matches in for today. Shock, they're in, obviously. They're very much so in. 5-0, still 17-0 now on the season. They got one more match this time around, but they've all but clinched, the top seed. Of course, there are games to be played. That doesn't mean that they're in the playoffs already. But they look really solid. Dallas right behind them. Like I said, that's the 1-2. Right now, Vancouver is number 3. It's kind of crazy, but they're number 3. Their chances are really good. Essentially, they need to win one of their last 2 to clinch. And they could lose their last 2 and still make it, depending on maps and how the other teams shake out. But looking really solid. Again, Toronto in really good shape. That map differential isn't amazing, so if they drop both of their matches, they could start sweating a bit. But for right now, they're sitting in really good shape. Then we have a lot of the teams coming in at 2-2. Outlaws 1-2. Big match for them and Florida coming up. Or big matches for Florida or for Houston, I should say. And then we have everybody else. So obviously the ones that stand out here, Vancouver, good. Bringing in King has been a really nice boon for them. And I hate to say, it was Shockwave's fault, because I really don't think it was Shockwave's fault. This is just, it's a better meta for them, it feels like. Masa can be very comfortable in that Lucio. They've had really nice performances from the Brig role as well as Mirror on the Junker Queen. And it's just, it's a better DPS fit right now, it seems. Can Shockwave still play? Absolutely. But King has looked very solid on the Genji since his debut, and we know how good Aspire is. He broke onto the scene in Season 3 with Toronto, and he was tremendous. So he's really starting to, feel that Sojourn and become, one of those upper echelon Sojourns. So is this a team that's going to, can they win the Summer Showdown? I don't think so. I think right now, I would say it's pretty much Shock and Dallas on the west side. They're the 2 teams that can win it. I'm going to say Toronto has a sliver, and Atlanta also now has a sliver because of Speedily being in. If no Speedily, then I would take Atlanta off. So those guys, I feel like they got a shot. They could potentially get there. But, it's big for any of these teams, especially Vancouver, Washington, guys who have struggled for the most part this season to be able to be in that cut line. And I expect this to hold, for a lot of these top teams. I think London, Houston, maybe Washington are the ones that they could start sweating a little bit. But Washington has a great map differential. That could be huge. So with that being said, we do then go below the cutoff. Do any of these teams have a shot? Again, Florida 1-2 -4, they got a shot, but I expect them to get smacked by Dallas tomorrow, and that's going to make it almost impossible for them. They need to definitely bounce back and win their last 2 to have a shot and win a lot of maps, get the good map differential, because it might not be good unless they can pull off an upset tomorrow. Boston is in pretty much the same shape where it's like, okay, win your next 2 or you're basically screwed. And then New York, is also in the same category as them. Paris very much feels out. They could win all 3, and that could potentially get them in, but they haven't won a map this stage, and I don't expect that to change. And then we come across my Gladiators, who have looked really bad in this meta, just straight up. The coordination just hasn't looked like it's been there. We have Reiner dying just first all the time. Whether you want to blame that on Reiner or the supports, or the shot calling, the coaching, you could blame it on whatever. I haven't been able to like go through the film enough times to really figure it out. Is it Reiner's fault? Is it the supports not backing him up? Is it the DPS not being in position and not contesting the other DPS? There can be so many causes for these disconnects. But funny enough, the Gladiators do still have a chance. Houston's got a couple of tough games coming up. And if Gladiators, they have won 6 maps despite being 0-4. They've kept a lot of their series close. So if they have a match against Paris, if they go 3-0, 3-0, get to 2-4 with a 0 differential, that could potentially be enough. Funny enough, I don't think they will. Again, they just don't look very good in this meta, and it's, for me, it's sad, but it is what it is. And if there can be more parity in the league, I'm fine with that. I pretty much root against Shock every week, not because I don't like them. I have nothing against them, but they're 17-0, so people, unless you're a fan of that team specifically, you tend to root against them. But, if I had to really put my foot down and say right now, I think this is going to be the top 8 that we get. Just based on the skill level right now and the matches that they have going forward, I just don't see any of these 5 teams climbing into that 7 or 8 spot. So that's where we're at for the West. Again, it could get really interesting, though. Boston or Florida score an early upset, boom, we're on. Or, if either Justice or Spitfire just boom and 3-0 the other one, say Justice 3-0 Spitfire, Justice, then they're going to be essentially locked in. And then all of a sudden, you got to think about Spitfire. They'd be 2-3 -1. Then that puts them right on the bubble. So, still a lot of things that could happen. But, it's now or never for these teams below the cutoff line. And then in the East with our 7 teams, of course, we have the Valiant and the Spark. Spark have only won 1 map this stage. Rough. And the Valiant, who it feels like they've been really close on a couple of these. They just lost to Philly in a map 5. But they're also in big trouble. This week is pretty much could very well sort it out. If Philly has 2 good matches, then all of a sudden it could be, essentially done over here already. But the Charge are right there. They're tied with Philly. Both 1-1, both 3-5. So, there's not a lot to say about over here. Dynasty's safe, Dragons are safe. Hunters are not safe, but they're in really good shape. They take 1, or we see what happens. Because I don't see, either the Valiant or the Spark, going on a run and winning their last 3. Same thing with the Charge. But pretty much anything could happen. That last spot is up for grabs. Only 1 win overall for Philly. So we don't know a ton about the East. We're gonna know a lot after. For me personally, I think we're gonna know a lot after tomorrow morning and then Sunday. We're gonna know a lot standing wise, of course. That's a given. But we're also going to know, which teams truly are good in this meta. Which of these, the 5, 6, 7. Skip. Brain malfunction, but we'll see, because it's there for the taking. Charge haven't made a playoff yet, Hunters haven't made a playoff yet, Valiant haven't made a playoff yet, and they're all in position to do so. So I'm looking forward to watching those matches back tomorrow after I go into work early and hopefully take a nice nap. Sorry, the schedule has been very strange. My sleep schedule has been just completely out of whack, so I do apologize. But in any case, I will conclude the video on that. Let me know what you think down in the comments below about the predictions for this week. Standings. Who do you think is going to be making it to the Summer Showdown? Main qualifiers. Think there's any teams from the lower cutoff lines in either region that are going to make a run, or if it's more of the same. I just hope we get some great matches again tomorrow, because we got some good ones today. Shock, New York, it wasn't that close, but Atlanta Spitfire was a very interesting one. Just seeing the debut of Speedily was awesome, and then Vancouver Justice was very, very competitive. Hopefully we get some more competitive ones in the East this time around the next couple of days. But in any case, as always, thank you very much for watching, and we will see you in the next one.